Welcome, Glenn, to the ASI podcast. Thank you for coming today. Glenn has achieved national, European, and world recognition in surf life saving, Ironman, and sprint kayak competitions. International competitions include a surf Ironman in surf life saving, European medalists, along with training and racing as part of the British Olympic racing squad in sprint kayak, which I've got down here as a K4 1,000 meters, and now a world medalist in long distance ocean ski. Glenn is the owner of Ocean Sports, based in the lovely Carbis Bay, which is in Cornwall in England, and they provide SUP, sailing, Hawaiian canoe and kayak lessons, as well as activities and tours. Glenn organises SUP competitions, including the annual Carbis Bay Celtic Cup, and set up the St Ives Outrigger and Paddle Sport Club. Glenn has had a lifetime spent immersed in the ocean, competing, working as a professional beach lifeguard in the UK and Australia, surfing and paddling whatever craft he can get his hands onto. What a fantastic introduction.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
So let's start from the beginning, Glenn. Where did this kind of interest in sport come, and particularly water sports? Where did that sort of arise from then?
Yeah, I'm very lucky, really. I was actually born in Hammersmith, London, and that's where my family's from. And then before I was even a week old, my mum always used to be on holiday, family holidays down to St Agnes. So moved us down to Cornwall. So yeah, really, really lucky, really. And so I grew up in the town of Newquay, and which was, an amazing playground for anyone interested in the sea. And yeah, so I think, yeah, it was always around me. It was a natural thing to, pardon the pun, fall into it. So I was always sort of dragging myself. We lived a fair way out of town, so I'd be cycling in with whatever craft I could carry under my arm. And initially it was just getting to the beach, messing around with my mates, and then trying to teach ourselves to surf. And I joined a surf life saving club. So it's where the lifeguards back in the day would come through this club network of learning their skills, their trade, get their qualification, and become a beach lifeguard. And I think my mum was desperately worried that I was going to drown, and so she said, join this club. They're going to teach you how to swim in the sea and paddlecraft. And I have to say, probably, surf life saving was absolutely the cornerstone of everything that I went on to do. It gave me the ocean skills, or the beginning of these ocean skills, and this sort of little snippet of how exciting the ocean was and how punishing it could be at the same measure. And then that was it. It kind of sparked my passion for it. And I think, yeah, and so very, very lucky, really. So those skills and the confidence from there. Things were just a little bit difficult at school, so I couldn't really read and write very well. So I had dyslexia. But then back when I was at school, when we had chalkboards and actual chalk and blackboards, and so dyslexia wasn't really a thing. So I was going to special reading classes with I was the only non-autistic person in the room. And just going, oh my God, I have no idea. These words don't make any sense. And so that was it. Sort of grew up, sort of bouncing or surviving school. And so what sport did, or finding the ocean, that's what gave me the confidence. All of a sudden, I found something that it seemed like I was all right at. I was most definitely not. And there was nothing at school that I did that was outstanding. I was in a swimming club, and I was middle to back, and just played school rugby. I was just part of the team. So there's nothing really that suggested that I was ever gonna, I suppose I could say I made a career out of sport. By no stretch of the imagination was I like an amazing world light or anything like that, but did okay at it. And so it snowballed from there, from surf life saving. It gave me this confidence. It was like, okay, well, I'm not rubbish at everything. And the teachers keep on telling me I was rubbish, but I seem to be all right at this. And there just happened to be a world championships being held at Fistral Beach in 1994. And so I, became a beach lifeguard. The youngest lifeguard at that time I was just turned 16, and it was almost a downfall of me, really. It's something what I call the Peter Pan syndrome in Newquay. So, you end up getting this amazing job, you save your money, and then you go away in the winter and you come back and you just do that. And you do that for quite a long time. So I was really lucky. And so that was it. I dropped out of school, dropped out of college. Ironically, the college I dropped out of was the one I ended up lecturing in. And and then just lifeguarding. And this competition, somebody said, "Oh, the world champs are coming." I thought, yeah, okay, I'm going to give that a crack. And so I'd stopped surf life saving, stopped everything. All I did was surfed and worked on the beach guarding. So I thought, right, okay, I'm going to give this a go. And I have no idea whether I'm going to, where it will take me. But I'm just going to see if I can get on the team. I want to be an Ironman. So I want to. I'm laughing because I remind myself of essentially most of the stuff I've done is because I'm massively deluded by underestimating the challenge in front of me, and so underestimating that and overestimating what I'm capable of. And that combined with being belligerent. So those three things have sort of led me down some really interesting
It's the winning
paths.
combo.
So yeah, being deluded. So, and that's what it was. So I thought, right, I'm going to get on the team. So, at no point was there anything that suggested I could go to World Championships, let alone get onto a national team. That's what I did. So I trained really hard, got on the national team, and became an Ironman. And from that point onwards, it just is like, wow, this is cool. I'm going to carry on doing this. And that was it then. So I used to go train in the winter, save up my money, go around to Australia, all these different parts of the world, went around the world doing all these things. So I was really lucky. So that was where sport came from, really.
Yeah, that's an amazing stuff. Thank you for sharing that, Glenn, because there's something that you picked up upon there about kind of school. And I think, sometimes for young people, there is a little bit of like, if you don't fit the mold, and there's kind of these expectations that we have, and there's a big world out there. And I'm trying to teach my children this, that there's school is, yes, of course it's important, and we all need to go, and we all need to have our lessons and everything else, but there's a big picture there, and I think sometimes it's about finding our place in life, isn't it? And it sounds to me that you kind of found that place through sport, and you found something that you could do well in, and that you were passionate about, and obviously that's grown into such a to where you are today, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think what happens when you're constantly told that you're rubbish at something, you then just start to disengage, and then you don't. Then what happens is there's a psychological concept called learned helplessness. So then you disconnect effort with outcome. So you then don't realize that actually, if I persist or work hard, you don't realize that will affect an outcome. And that's kind of scholastically, that's what happened to me, really, I think. And, and it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I got diagnosed with dyslexia. I realized I had dyslexia, and that in itself is quite a funny little process too. But I consider that my superpower now. So funnily enough, because without that, I wouldn't be thinking the way that I do. It wouldn't have pushed me down different avenues. And so, yeah, I see dyslexia as a superpower, not as sometimes people say, oh, you've got dyslexia. It's like, oh my God, no. Oh, and people, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. It's like, well, yes, like, thank God for that. I've got dyslexia. It means I can think.
I love that.
So, and that was really important. And that little bit of water time, that gradually built confidence. And from a psychological point of view, a definition of confidence is that the certainty of you bringing about the desired end. So all of a sudden I was starting to go, oh, I can do this, and well, actually, if I just work for this a little bit longer, then I'll get better. And that's what that early experience did. So and then that's got spiraled out into lots of different things. I was very lucky. If you've ever read a book called Bounce by Matthew Syed, it talks about very similar stuff. How these, God, try not to get sidetracked a little bit, but I find it difficult to sometimes coaches get a little bit carried away with their impact on the outcome of an athlete's performance. And really, a coach is really there, somebody to sort of is a catalyst that might be able to streamline things and help that progress become a bit more efficient. So Matthew Side talked about how he was really lucky. His parents randomly bought a tennis table, table tennis table. Didn't really have enough room for it, so put it in the garage. So it meant they had to stand really close to the table. Him and his brother became highly addicted, and because they were standing so close to the table, they couldn't stand back. They developed this short game that was very different to the rest of the people in the world. On their street, it turned out that somebody was a national coach, an international player, who then set up a table tennis club, who was open-minded. It was an open house, so then they could practice whenever they want. So all these ingredients were coming together, coalescing, that just, you know, gave this opportunity for these boys to thrive and excel. And that's what I think the definition of what the coach is trying to do, really, is coalesce, bring all these ingredients to allow that person to flourish. And I was lucky, and that's happened to me down here. Certain people come in, a guy called Chris Humpage. He was an amazing triathlete, and you know, represented Great Britain in lots of different sports, 4 different sports. And he said, "Oh God, what are you doing?" And I go, "Well, I'm trying to get ready for this event." He goes, "My God, why are you doing it like that?" And so he started to educate me and sort of gave me these ideas. And he said, "Well, look, if you want to be a good Ironman," so for those of you who don't know, so the original Ironman started in California with the beach lifeguards. They still do it now. It involves rowing, swimming, and in the first event, there's a great book by Mick Doyle called Morning Glass, and he describes the first Ironman. They had lane ropes going out through the surf. They'd swim through these lane ropes, back in again, fell out and come back. And yeah, it was incredible. And so that's what I did. And so the modern version we know through in Australia is things like swimming, board paddling, like the lifeguard paddleboard, and a ski. So it's like a sit on some kayak. And he said, "Well, if you want to be a good ski paddler, you need to paddle a kayak." Okay. So he took me up to Home Pierpont in Nottingham, and we attempted to paddle a kayak, and I swam more than I paddled, and it was freezing. And I was, "Stuff this, I'm not paddling kayaks." And, but in the end, I did paddle kayaks, and so to become a better Ironman. So this is where the delusion sets in. So I wanted to be a professional Ironman. I was so far away from being a professional Ironman. It was just ridiculous. But, you know, I persisted. And that's because I was thick-skinned. But also I came across other people paddled kayaks, and ended up living in California for a short while. Found somebody who trained in the American Olympic training squad, a guy called Chris Barlow. I said, "Why don't you come down and paddle with us?" So I paddled with them, and it was like, "All right, you're quite good at this. Why don't you do this?" But I didn't believe them. This guy called Philippe Bocra, he said, "Glenn, you know, this guy's a giant. He's a giant." And I'm most definitely not a giant. I've got long arms, but that's about it. And he said, you must paddle. This is it. This is your future." And the American coach is a bloke called Reg Hatch. And he goes, "Yeah, paddling's your future." I'd never considered that. So it wasn't until I got back to the UK, and I was about 29, I thought, all right, okay, I'll give this a crack. And so the only way I could do it, having failed school, so I had nothing, was to go to university. So I had no idea how was I to do this? How can I go to university with nothing? So I was very lucky that as a mature student, so that opens the gates a little bit, and then because of Ironman and going to these world championships, and they let me in amazingly, and I just about survived the first year, you know, nearly failing it, and then ended up with just missing out on a first by 1.5%, well 2%, because they wouldn't bump you up for that. So I was stoked, but it gave me the time to allow me to chase this again deluded dream of going to the Olympics in a kayak. And so I was very lucky that, you know, I just sort of, being belligerent and deluded, it's just, you know, I was out the back on the Thames, just so far behind the training pack. They're looking at me going, "My God, why are you here? You've got grey hair. You're swimming to the bank and we're paddling up the river." And I was just, it was honestly, but you know, I just hung in there. I just stayed there and carried on, just ignoring what that people were telling me and going, "No, I want to do this." So, I was very lucky that we got a chance. We became, to summarize it, we've got the really fast, really good people go in K1. So K is kayak, 1 is for 1 person. So that's where the best people get streamed off to. The next group of best people will be in the K2s, and then the next group of people will be in K4. So, so you get the idea where we're at. And I'd be in K4s that kept on beating the K4s they wanted to go to World Championships, and different crews would come together and fall apart, but I was always in the crew that ended up doing very well. And so we became part of what is known as an Olympic racing squad. And then they said, well, look, we want you to try and qualify for the games. So so that's what I did. Became a funded athlete for a short period of time. And the only reason that happened was because at the end of my undergrad, my now wife, Jill, she goes, okay, so that's it now, Glenn, isn't it? You're not going to do this any further? I go, no, I've got to keep on going. So I had to do my master's because I hadn't become a funded athlete. And then it's like, just as I finished my master's, I managed to get onto this funding that allowed me to paddle. So that allowed to carry on going. And it was really special. Probably equally the most torturous time, but the most amazing time as well. And it was phenomenal experience. We were on hiding to nothing. People who looked at us would clearly say that you're not going to make it, which I kind of knew. But then we were given this opportunity. The opportunity was like, to fulfill this dream. And you think, well, do I give up now and just say, well, you said I wasn't going to do it, or do I find out for myself? So that's what I did. Just committed, even though we weren't going to make it. I said, well, I've got to give it the best go. I'll never get this chance again. And by doing that, what was really interesting, I found out was that how amazing I think the body is. Like you start pushing yourself to a level. What you think you're capable of is not close to what you are capable of. And a very famous runner called Roger Bannister, who broke the 4-minute mile. That's he almost said that kind of quote, is that very few people in the world know what they're truly capable of. And so I got a little glimmer of it, and it was really interesting to feel this body of mine do things I never thought capable of, to go as fast as I could. It was beautiful, really. It's funny. You just all you're doing is the same action over and over again. But when it's done well, it's a beautiful thing. So we were lucky, but we didn't make it. And then, so that was that. But without doing the surf life saving, it gave me the skills and the confidence. Without going into this program and, pushing your system, that gave me this engine, and that I'd never would have had otherwise. And so then that spilled me out, and then I went into ocean ski, racing that, and did well in that. Then obviously paddleboarding came along, and did okay in that, and very luckily got to go to 2 World Championships. Made the final in Fiji as the oldest person there. That was people were coming up to me and go, "Oh, are you the coach?" Or a masseur. I go, "No, I'm bloody going in the final." We need to take a defibrillator out with us, and so it was really good. So yeah, and then the foiling, and then the skills that I learned from paddleboarding then gave me the skills to, as foiling came on, I was like, wow, when I saw Kai Lenny and Connor Baxter, out in the Cowie Channel, just putting a foil underneath their race boards. And then the day later, they chopped off half their race board. And then all of a sudden it just evolved so rapidly. It was like, God, this is one of the things that I want to do. And again, you just remember these little things in your life. I remember being in junior school, the teacher said, well, Glenn, what's your hobby? And I go, I'm not really sure, I do lots of things. She goes, well, what do you like? I guess I like going fast. She goes, what do you mean? I didn't mean like, driving cars. I was at junior school, I wasn't driving cars, but I liked to see how fast I could go, which I couldn't quite articulate. And it was a strange thing, because I was in a swim club and I was rubbish. But I knew I just liked the idea of sort of being tuned into something. And that's where the ocean, I like tuning into the ocean. I like trying to sort of, see how fast I can go just using the ocean, and being, in tune. Well, I've said it a few times. I'm trying to avoid the word at one with it, but that's not really.
It's true, isn't it? It is true.
Yeah, and so foiling is that next iteration. It's like you've got to be so aware and so dialed into what's going on around you to stay up on the foil.
You talked a little bit about kind of psychology and things like that. I just wondered what, talk me through a bit of the mindset of being a competitor and, during that period of your life when you were competing, what is the kind of the mindset that you think that you need? Because I mean, I've not ever experienced competition. I've only sort of done fun racing really, but I'd be really interested to know kind of the mindset of a competitor, where it needs to be, and the kind of things that you experience.
Yeah, I don't think it's that different to anyone in every day of life. There are common themes that fit. I think remember. Just the other day, I was driving my daughter to school, or my kids to school, and no, I just picked my daughter up from school anyway. Somebody said, they're on the radio, they're so talented, they're super talented. Now, when you use a word like that, that person is other. So it means that person is talented and you're not, or you're less talented, or they're on a pedestal, they're different, they're other. And it's quite hard trying to get people to think about what is talent. So I said, Tilly, do you know what that actually means? She goes, what do you mean? I said, do you know what, when somebody says they're talented, do you know what that really means? She goes, no, well, they're really good. I said, well, no, it means that they've practiced harder for longer than someone else. And that's it. When we say someone's talented, what we see is an end product. What we haven't seen is the path, the road, and how much work that they've done to get there. So really, it's in my way I look at it, talent is a lazy expression of what that person's capable of. It lacks perception, and it's just a snap decision. We all use it, commentators use it, but actually it means that person's persevered for hundreds of thousands of hours and being dedicated in what they're doing. So in terms of the mindset then, it really, I've always reflected on these things before I even knew what they had a label for. So when I was lecturing, I then discovered that, there are things called mental toughness that they were starting to develop about 10 years ago. People like Jones were looking at this and had these elements. And one was, resilience, persistence, internalized belief. And those are characteristics that are commonplace. They're there every day. It's just we might not recognize them. That's what we're using. It's just an athlete. It's just the extreme version of that. Just as a successful business person is, they're the extreme version. They've just persisted. They've applied themselves more focused for longer than another person. I feel a little bit like Forrest Gump being in I've been lucky to be in these 4 different national teams in different sports, and I've seen incredibly talented people who I consider to be talented, and I would look at them and go, wow, I can't see how I can beat them. I'm racing for second. Or I'd go, this person is going to dominate. She's going to dominate the world for the next 10 years. She's going to be absolutely amazing. And I'd be in these groups because I was a belligerent and continuing for a bit longer than other people. Then I would see these people give up. They wouldn't get to the point that I could clearly see they were capable of. And so that mindset of the athlete, like I say, is probably not necessarily much different to every other people. It's just everyone else doesn't realize they have this. So I would absolutely say it's just that resilience, that persistence to continue to work even when the chips aren't going, when the rubber, the green isn't going your way, and when things aren't going well. Quite often people will pull the pin and say, oh, well, this isn't working, I'll try something else. And they give up at the moment, at the point that it was just about to keep, make a difference for them. And this belief. And, and this is the next thing is when I first started out, wasn't necessarily to achieve a thing, it was to not give up. I said to myself, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do it for as long as I need to. And I didn't have a criteria of what that success is. So when we say that I'm going to be this, there's a finite point, and unless you reevaluate, then sometimes it stops or you don't reach it. but it wasn't. I didn't make a decision of what success was. It was, I'm going to just keep on going, and that quite often is the case, I feel.
Absolutely, and it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? And I can't help but going back to what we're teaching our kids as well, that don't give up, and hard. I mean, it's the expression that hard work does outstrip talent, but actually they're the same thing. Being talented, as you're saying, is just putting in and putting in and putting in and getting better and better and better, and having the belief behind it as well. So no, thank you for that. So I'm going to shift the focus a little bit now to ocean sports. So that's your business, as I mentioned at the beginning, on Carbis Bay. So tell me a little bit about that, Glenn.
Yeah, well, I mean, it all stems a little bit from lifeguarding. I said earlier, it corrupts you, and it corrupts you in the sense that you're used to being outside, in the water, on the beach, so there aren't many jobs that you could get doing that. And then touching on the confidence thing is that when I went to uni, that then re-established, developed this confidence that actually, I wasn't as thick as what I thought I was, and that, again, persist, work hard, that sort of thing. And so that gave me the confidence that actually I don't have to fit into a box. I can create something for myself. So I went mad. So when I finished uni, did my master's, again, Jill goes, "Oh, great. So like you're qualified now. So, we're all sorted." I go, "Oh yeah, well, about that." She goes, "Well, what do you mean you're not qualified?" Well, I've just got a few certificates. I'm not qualified to do anything. And she's like, "What?" So then I did my teacher training, and then basically I started lecturing in sports science, and I started ocean sports at the same time, basically in panic. It's like, God, how are we gonna survive? I'm about to get married. I've got, I've just worked on the beach lifeguarding, and in my 30s or whatever. So so at that point, I just looked at. We started off with a surf school in Newquay, which is easy. It was a no-brainer. Everyone had a surf school. It was just, you just go, well, I'm going to do a surf school. Great. Buy a couple of boards and go. We moved back to St Ives, which is where my wife is from, Jill. And I just looked at that water and go, God, it's stunning. This place is just, there was no activity centres at that point down our part of the way. And I just... in 2001, I went to Hawaii and did this race called the Molokai. We raced from one island to the main island, Oahu, and saw these things called outriggers. And these were like the kernel of the seed of like what we were going to do. And I got to Carbis Bay and it's like, this is like Hawaii. God, we've got to get outriggers here. I fell in love with the outriggers, and I couldn't see any in the UK. And I'm going, God, I'm sure people would love to do this. And that was a basic principle. It's like, I'm sure people would like to do the things that I've done. And that's where ocean sports came from. So it started off with coaching. I was doing a hell of a lot of coaching in the disciplines that I had been in at the time. So in kayaking and in ocean ski and in surf life saving. That then developed into a hire centre. So we were then hiring kayaks and running tours and our outrigger canoes. We managed to find, when we sold our surfing business, I invested our money into 2 4-man Hawaiian canoes, which stayed in the garage for quite a couple of years. And Jill's going, "Oh, what did you do that for?" "Don't worry, it'll come good." And so we ended up running tours with those, and then we developed this business. We started out off the back of just in a beach hut, a dilapidated beach hut with a handful of, I think we had 6 single kayaks and 2 double kayaks and 2 outrigger canoes, to where we are today, which is a million miles away from that. And so we've been going for about 15 years now, but it's probably the last 5 to 6 years where ocean sports has actually been our only revenue source. So up until then, because I was lecturing full time running the degree, that was the safety net. So it was really, it was like, it was all right if it failed or the year wasn't so good. I had a salary, it paid the mortgage. And then I decided that if I was going to teach my kids anything, I had to do the things I was trying to tell them. So I took redundancy. At that time, ocean sports wasn't a viable business. It most definitely did not have enough money to pay the mortgage, and we just went for it. And so we're 6 years on, and it's still going. So touch wood.
Awesome. How did you get into the ASI? What was the story there?
Well, I saw that this thing called stand-up paddleboarding was getting a little bit of attention on sort of press around the world. One of the lads down this way, he said, "Look, can you set up a training program for me?" And he was part of the national team. He was our fastest paddler, so I started training with him. And I thought, well, okay, well, let's buy a couple of paddle boards. So we spent a few grand on boards, and they stayed in the gear shed for 2 years. Not one person hired them. So again, Jill's going, "Glenn, oh my God, what have you done? This is just, you've wasted all this money. That's a lot of money." It's a lot of money anyway, but it's a lot of money when you didn't have any to start with. And then eventually a couple of people were hiring them, and I'm going, and I'm just thinking, look, when I do things, I want to know how to do them well if I'm going to coach it. So because of this lad, I wanted to know all about paddleboarding. So I paddled paddleboards so that I could make sure that what I was telling him was correct. Similarly with a hire, then I was like, well, I don't have a coaching certificate or instructor certificate, so we can only hire, but I still want to know about paddleboarding. So I started looking around, and I did two other qualifications before I got to ASI, simply because they were near to hand, and I didn't actually see ASI. And when I sat them, I realized that some of the information had come from coaching manuals that I had been involved with constructing as well. And I'm just going, what? How can this happen? So I did them, and then I found ASI, and then I realized it's like, oh right, this is actually quite different. This is a whole world away. The content is unique. There was clear progression. There's clear progression in the lesson structure. There's clear progression in a career structure. There's recognition internationally. And to me, it just, it was a no-brainer. It's like, okay, this is what this is what we should be doing. If we believe in the quality of what we do, then that's why I did ASI.
Yeah. And you're a master trainer for the ASI, and I always call you the benchmark in paddle stroke for me. So when I'm assessing or anything like that, right, I'm going to look at Glenn's video. That's the benchmark for me. So yeah, so obviously that relationship still continues. We're kind of coming to the end of the pandemic in a sense. How did that affect you? I mean, I've heard all sorts of different stories. I know for us, we were actually, ironically, really busy because suddenly loads of people wanted to go outside. So what about you guys? How was it for you down there? I mean,
similar. We were very lucky. There's a lot of businesses that have folded as a result of the pandemic, and people have genuinely struggled. And I really feel for those. We were in that situation in the sense that because we are on private land, we don't have council rates, and so our agreement was with the hotel. So all funding, everything was all tied in with the rateable value of your business. So we weren't getting any support packages at all, and we were like going, oh my God, like we're not going to have a season. How are we going to survive? And one of the premises behind starting Ocean Sports was that, well, if it doesn't work, I can always go dig holes somewhere. I can be a labourer, or just do anything just to pay the bills. That's what I can do. And so the same sort of thing was like, well, we're not going to get any support. We're going to have to survive somehow. We don't even know if we were going to be able to open up. I was offered a job lifeguarding, and really very kindly. So then I took that job full time, and just before the new sort of like regulations of what was the roadmap of what was going to happen over the summer. So at that time, then I was full-time lifeguard over at Portsmouth Beach, and so working there 5 days a week and working at Ocean Sports 2 days a week. So it condensed our season. So the restrictions came off. I think, was it mid-July? or restrictions to travel. There was still obviously restrictions, wasn't there? You know, group size, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that did impact us, and so we had to streamline the business because I wasn't there, so we lost a person. Not that I'm valuable; it's just I'm another body that can do a thing. And then because of that, we had to streamline our provision. We then looked at how we could minimize contact, so we sorted out online booking, remote payment systems, and so all of these very painful and arduous processes that you avoid because you can get away with not doing it, we had to do it. And so it really made a big difference. It really focused our minds on what were the things that were paying our bills. And instead of sort of going, oh, we like this, but it was costing us money, we then just focused on what we needed to do to get through. And it made a huge difference. So that combined with all of a sudden, everyone's got cabin fever. It's like, oh my God, we've got to get out and do something. So, you know, people were much more enthusiastic to getting out. And obviously they couldn't travel. So Cornwall, we've been very lucky. Cornwall's been on the ascendancy for a good 5 to 10 years now. And so people were already heading our way. So they were boards. So we were incredibly busy that first year. So it was almost our busiest year that year. It was then because it was so short. So it gave us just enough money to scrape through the following season, ready to survive, because that's all it was. It was just survival. As long as we could, it doesn't. I know a lot of people were getting very stressed about how much money they were losing, but for me, it wasn't about, if I haven't got that money, I haven't lost it as much as I wanted it. So we were down, but it was all about survival. So I was not stressing as much. Like, okay, we've just crossed the threshold. I know we can make it to next year, and that was the most important thing. And then this 2021 season was almost a replication of the year before, but longer. So it made it, people were super, keen to get out on the water. There were not many people who were sitting on the beach for as long anymore, which is lovely. People wouldn't instead of, obviously it's nice to relax and not do anything, but people were active. They're like, all right, let's get out, let's go. And so it was great. So for us, we were one of those businesses that thrived. And we're very fortunate because of that. So so it really helped us.
Excellent, thank you. Have you got sort of a bit of a funny or a quirky story as a coach, as a SUP instructor, as a foiler? Is there anything you can share with us there, Glenn?
Okay, I don't know about it's not that. Maybe the funny stuff isn't something you could go on a podcast. I've got a cool one. I swam with a dolphin.
Oh wow.
That was quite. So we get dolphins down here quite a lot. We're very lucky. At the end of the season, a couple of years ago, a customer came up and was talking to me. I'm always looking at the water, constantly looking at the water. I saw a fin, and there were two people swimming out quite far. And I was speaking to the customer. I said, "Oh, look, watch this. They don't know the dolphin's there. The dolphin's heading towards them. You're going to see them jump in a minute." And lo and behold, the two people were like, "Oh, like that." I said, I'd love to swim with dolphins. Isn't that amazing? He goes, yeah. So we were watching. Normally, a dolphin will come in and it'll go off. It was a bottlenose. This dolphin kept on swimming around and back, and the people were swimming, and every now and then go, oh my God, the dolphin's underneath me. And I'm looking, and I'm going, God, I really want to swim with dolphins. It was low tide, and this customer was still with me. And I said, look, I'm really sorry. I've got to go. I've got to try and swim with this dolphin. Grabbed my wetsuit, I threw my clothes off, running down to my cozies, hopping, getting one leg on, getting another leg on, and the dolphin's still there. And I got to the water, came, it swam out to where these people were, and this dolphin, it was this bottlenose dolphin on its own, was there. So obviously I'm very excited. I go, God, this is amazing. This thing's swimming underneath me. And so because of my swimming background, I can blow those smoke ring bubbles in the water that come up, lovely clear bubbles. So I wonder if it will like this. So I swam down as far as I could, went on my back and blew this bubble, and the dolphin just comes going, oh my God. And the dolphin, it was doing this. I'm going, oh my God, the dolphin loves it. So then I swam the rest of the beach, going up, hyperventilating, getting two breaths, going down to the bottom, blowing these smoke rings, the dolphin coming across, going through the smoke rings.
Oh, wow.
Me. And, you know, I was just, honestly, I could barely breathe, and but I couldn't stop doing it. And by the time I sort of lifted my head up, I was on the other side of the beach. The swimmers were nowhere to be seen. It was just me and this dolphin. So, yeah, I suppose that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a once in a lifetime, that one. It's absolutely amazing. So I mentioned at the start, we want to talk to you about foiling, what you're getting up to there. And it probably ties in a little bit with what are your plans for the future.
So I started foiling or hydrofoiling probably about 4 years ago, right on the ascendancy of it starting, certainly in the UK. When I started, I know that it was probably about 4, maybe 5 people in the country doing it. And when I saw this video of Kai Lenny and just riding swells in the ocean, it's like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. So so I had to try and import foils. I couldn't get foils. I managed to get these couple of foils, and ever since it's just highly addictive. And so when you see these gliding, effortless videos of people traveling and pumping and stuff, man, honestly, they are so good, because I tell you what, I make it look very hard. So I'm just, honestly, you know, I'm quite fit, and I paddle all right. And, you know, if you can pump and on the flat water and keep going, you're doing really well. So, because I still find it very hard. So you've got the beauty of foiling is it all of a sudden it opens up a whole new world of the ocean, and the different kind of conditions you would go out in. So a friend of mine, he started taking up wing foiling. So that's the kind of foil that you have, like it was in Australia, they call them wingdings, or a hand wings, like a big kite that you hold on to. That in itself is quite inefficient, but the foil is so efficient, and all you need is just enough speed to get the foil, get you and the board out of the water. The moment that happens, the foil takes over, and it's incredibly efficient. You absolutely whizzle on. So that's amazing. But I started up with sup foiling because of that background in surfing. But I always just, it was downwinding for me. That's where we paddle from point A to B and go with the wind. That was, for me, is like the holy grail of the whole thing. So you don't often get downwind conditions. So I was trying to maximize my time on the foil by either sup foiling, learning to wing foil, and prone foil as well. So I figured that if I can't downwind, I can get better at foiling in general, so that when the downwinding comes, then I'll be ready for it. So and that's, you know, just honestly, I constantly just always, they call it foil brain, and I'm always looking out for, when can I go out? If I can't go out now, is there something else I can do on the foil? Can I go somewhere else? And just before we spoke, I was looking at the forecast for this week and looking at the wind strengths, direction, and go, right, okay, Wednesday I'm going to do this route or that Paranatho route. Like Tuesday is a bit, Wednesday is a bit southerly, so I'm going to have to go here. And so it's highly addictive, and I absolutely love it. And so for me, it's the downwind, so the sup foil, and and that's probably the hardest of all of the disciplines. Well, certainly for me, anyway. Where does the future hold? So, yeah, I still want to race. I mean, lockdown has been difficult for people, but unfortunately, I've had a few health issues over the last 3 to 4 years that sort of put things in perspective a little bit. And so it's like, okay, I still want to race. I still want to race on a paddleboard. So I want to go to the World Championships in that. I still want to race ocean ski. So I want to go to the World Championships in that. And they are all at the end of the year. I also would like to, I set a race up called the Celtic Crossing. After doing the Molokai, I was looking for what is similar to the Molokai. And this island, the Isles of Scilly, is 52 kilometers from the mainland, which is the same distance as Molokai. So I've paddled that quite a few times on different craft and escorted people. And so I want to foil that in April, but sup foil, so not with a wing. I want to paddle it, and I've been trying to do that. When I say trying to do that, it's been on my mind to do it for about 3 years, maybe more, 2 to 3 years. But when you know that you can only stay up on the foil for 4 or 5 minutes to do 52 kilometers, it's like, how the hell am I going to do it? And so I've held back, you know, and it made me incredibly frustrated because I wasn't doing the things. You always relearn what you've learned all the time. It's constant. Well, it is for me anyway. I've got a goldfish memory, I think. So I bit the bullet. I said, right, for God's sake, I've got to do it. I'm going to do it. So I looked at the tides and I told myself I'm going to do it then at this point. And what was really interesting is that once I put the pin in the day and going, you're doing it then, all of a sudden, all of my training, all of my foiling, everything just focused. My foiling got better. I'm doing long downwinds on my foil now. And, you know, and all of a sudden it's like gone from impossible. And I'm genuinely, I thought I couldn't, there's no way I can do it. So now it's like, all right, yeah, I'm on track. I reckon I can do this. And so, and that's my exciting thing. That's my main projects is that foil challenge, and then to race in these big events later on in the year. I like racing in the open. So I turned 50 last year, so I still want to race in the open. So that's the other challenge.
Thank you so much for your time today on the podcast. Whenever I speak to you, I always learn loads. I've been writing down names of books and stuff as we've been talking.
Yeah, Chris, thank you very much. It was good talking to you.